lesson 4. In this particular lesson, we are going to look at what variables are. So what are variables in computer programming? Variables are just containers that store values in a program. So when you look at this definition, we have two keywords. So we have container, and then we have the other keyword as a value. It is the value that we put into the container that we create. So the container that we create is what is termed as a variable. And then what we put, or the data that we put into the container here, is what we are referring to as a value. So we put a value into a container. Values are put into the container. So when we remove container and then we place it with variable, it becomes values are put into variables. This is a container, and then we can name this particular container or bow as John's bow. So with this particular container, the name that we have given to it is John's bow. And then we have a value, that is what we put into the container. So values are put into containers. So in this case, we can see that we have our value, which is the food that we put into the container. And then we get a container which is full of a value. So the container or the bow here is our variable. And then the food that we put into the container is our value. So we can see that we put value into variables. And variables are just what? Containers that we create in our program. So someone will ask, these values are what? The values that we put into the container or the variables are the various data types that we have. So we have already discussed data types. So if you haven't watched that particular lesson, I would recommend you watch that particular lesson. So the value that we put into the variable that we create are those various data types that we have already discussed. And then we can give a name to that variable. So in this case, we gave John's bow as a name to the container in which we put our value. So let's look at declaring a variable. Declaring a variable refers to creating a container that will store the value. So when we are creating the container that will store the value, this particular action is termed as declaration of a variable. So when you are told to declare a variable, it simply means create a container that will hold or that will store a particular value. How we create a variable actually depends on the programming language being used. So every programming language we have has a way of declaring a variable. So declaring a variable actually depends on the programming language that you are using. So if you are using JavaScript, we use a keyword known as let. So we use the keyword let to instruct the computer that we want to create a variable. And then after the let keyword, you give a name to the container. That is why over here you are seeing the let keyword and then variable name. The variable name refers to the name that you are giving to the container. So we have let variable name. Then we can also use another keyword known as const, C-O-N-S-T, const, and then the name that we want to give to the container follows. So we have const variable name. Under the same JavaScript programming language, we can also use a keyword known as var, V-A-R. So we can also use var to declare a variable. So we have var variable name. So this is how we create a variable, or we will say this is how we declare a variable under JavaScript programming language. We make use of the keywords let, const, var, and then we proceed it with the name that we want to give to the container. Now let's look at how variables are declared under Java programming language. In Java, you need to specify the data type you are creating the variable for. So if the container you are creating or the variable you are declaring is going to hold an integer data type, then we use a keyword for that. If it is going to hold double or floating point data type, we have a keyword we use to create that particular container. So in Java, you need to know the data type you are going to save in the variable you are creating, and that actually informs you on the particular keyword you are supposed to use. So let's say you are creating a container that is going to hold string data type. So with this, you need to use a keyword known as string. And then after the string, the name you want to give to the container follows. If that particular container is going to hold an integer data type, then you need to create that variable or the container with the keyword int. So int variable name. So what does it mean? What it means is that when you create a variable or when you declare a variable with the int keyword, you cannot put any other data type inside this particular variable or this container that you have created with the int keyword. So that is what is meant by, in Java, you need to specify the data type you are creating the variable for. So the same way, if that particular container is going to store double or float data type, then you need to declare the variable with the keyword double. So we have double, then the name that you want to give to the variable follows. You need to know the data type you are going to put in the variable, and that influences how you create the variable. Let's look at Python programming language. Unlike JavaScript and Java, where we use a specific keyword to instruct the computer that we are creating a variable, under Python programming language, we do not use any keyword when we are declaring a variable. And then you need not to also specify the data type you want to put into that particular container. So all that you need to do is to get the name of the container and then assign a value into that particular container. So you don't use any keyword, and then you need not to also specify the data type you want to put into that container. Just get the name of the container and then assign a value to that particular container. When declaring a variable in computer programming, there are rules you need to follow. If you do not follow these rules, you cannot declare a variable or you cannot create a variable. The first rule is variable names can contain letters, lowercase a to z and uppercase a to z, and can also contain digits, that is from 0 to 9. So your variable name can contain any of these words, letters or digits. Under rule number 1, we have seen that variable names can contain digits, but these digits cannot begin the variable name. So variable names cannot begin with a number. So we cannot have a variable name like 12 first name. This variable name is not a proper variable name. Why? Because it begins with a digit, or it begins with a number. And the second rule says that variable names cannot begin with a number. So this variable name is invalid. But we can have first name 12. This is a valid variable name. Why is it a valid or correct variable name? Because it doesn't begin with a number. It can have numbers within them, but the number cannot begin the variable name. This particular variable name is also valid or correct. Why? Because we have the variable name not beginning with a digit or a number, but it contains what? A number. So we have first 12 name. This is also valid. So the rule says that the variable names cannot begin with a number. Let's look at the third rule. Variable names cannot begin or contain any symbol except underscore and dollar sign. So apart from underscore symbol and then the dollar sign symbol, variable names cannot 1. Begin with any symbol, 2. Contain any symbol. So we have first at name. This is an invalid variable name. Why is it an invalid variable name? Because it contains a symbol which is not the underscore or the dollar sign. So this is invalid. This is a valid variable name. So we have first underscore name. This is valid. Then we can also have first dollar sign name. This is also a valid variable name. So the rule says that variable names cannot begin or contain any symbol except underscore and dollar sign. Let's look at the next rule. Spaces are not allowed between variable names. So when you are declaring a variable, spaces are not allowed between the variable names. So you cannot have first and then we have a space and then name. This is an invalid variable name because we have a space between the two words. So it should be first name without any space. This is a valid variable name. If you want to use two words, then you either have to combine the words using underscore or you write the two words together as one. No spaces are allowed between variable names. The next rule is that variable names are case sensitive. Variable names are case sensitive. So when we say case sensitive, what does it mean? We have this particular variable name as age, capital A, G, E. This particular variable name is not equal to this age starting with lowercase or small letter a, G, E. So the first age with the uppercase and then the second age with the lowercase are two different variable names. The same way these two are also different from age, which has all the letters to be uppercase. So when we speak of variable names being case sensitive, this is what it means. A variable name cannot be a reserved word or keyword. So reserved word or keyword is a word that has a special meaning in the programming language you are using. So we have some dedicated words. These words are having a special meaning in the programming language being used. And your variable name cannot be any of these reserved or these keywords that are having special meaning in the programming language. Under JavaScript programming language, we used words like let, var, const. So your variable name cannot be let, your variable name cannot be var, your variable name cannot be const. Why? Because let, var, const are having special meaning in the JavaScript programming language. Let, var, const cannot be variable names in JavaScript. Let's look at assigning a value into a variable. After creating a variable, we need to put a value into that particular variable. So putting a value into a variable is what is termed as assigning value to a variable. The operator used to assign a value to a variable is the equal sign. We all know that in mathematics, equal sign checks for equality. That is, it checks if the left-hand side is equal to the right-hand side. But in computer programming, we use the equal sign to assign a value to a variable. So under programming, the equal sign doesn't check for equality, but it assigns a value to a variable. So the equal sign in programming language is the double equal sign. So if we want to check for equality, just like we do in mathematics with the single equal sign, under programming, we use the double equal sign to perform such task. So if you want to check if the left-hand side is equal to the right-hand side, we use the double equal sign. So let's look at how we assign value to a variable in JavaScript programming language. So this is the syntax. So we have our let keyword. We have seen the let keyword earlier on and the use of the let keyword. So the let keyword will come, then the name you want to give to the variable, and then the equal sign comes, and then the value you want to put into the variable. So this is how we assign a value to a variable in JavaScript programming language. So we can have let first name equal, then the value we put into first name is Samuel. So we have let first name equal Samuel. Then we also saw the use of the const keyword. Now we can also use the const keyword to declare a variable. So we have the const variable name equal, then the value we want to put into that particular variable. So we can have const age equal 45. And then the last one is the var keyword. So we have var variable name equal value, the same syntax but different keyword. So we have var is admin equal true. Let's look at Java programming language. So Java, we need to know the data type going to put into the variable, and that influences how we declare the variable. So if we want to assign a string data type, then we declare the variable with the keyword string. So here we have string variable name equal value. So here we can also have string last name equal amponsa. So here, apart from a string, we cannot put any other data type inside the variable last name. Why? Because we have declared it with the string keyword. Then we have int variable name equal value. We have int total mark equal 85. So here too, because we have declared the variable with the keyword int, we cannot put any other data type apart from integer data type inside total mark. And then the last one is double variable name equal value. You have double amount equal 315.99. So here too, we cannot assign any value to the variable amount apart from double or float data type. Let's look at Python programming language. As we have established earlier on, that declaring a variable under Python programming language, we do not use any keyword. So you need to have the name that you are giving to that particular variable and then assign a value to it. So we have first name equal something. So no need to specify the data type. Just assign a value to the variable. This is because Python programming language is made to be easy and then flexible. Constant variable. A variable whose value cannot be changed once assigned is known as a constant variable. We can declare a variable and then put a value into this particular variable with the intention that it should always point to that particular value. So when we create such a container or a variable, that particular variable is termed as a constant variable. So constant variables do not change their values, and then we cannot change their values once they are assigned. So in JavaScript, we use the keyword const to declare a constant variable. So what it means is that with this particular variable, when we assign a value to it, it will continue to hold its value as long as the program keep running. We cannot reassign it with a new value. In Java, we use the keyword final to declare a constant variable. So we have final, then the data type comes, then the name we want to give to that particular variable. So this is how we declare constant variable in JavaScript and Java programming language. In Python, there are workarounds to declare a constant. So we do not have a specific keyword like const in JavaScript and final under Java in Python that we use to declare constant variable. But we have some workarounds that we normally adapt when we want to use a constant variable in Python programming language. Why the use of variables? Why do we have to use variables? We use variables to avoid code duplication. So instead of writing the same value multiple times, we just create a variable and then store that particular value inside that variable. So whenever we want to use that particular value, we just reference that value through the variable name or the container that holds that particular value. So it reduces code duplication. And then they also store data values for later use. Variables allows calculations and changes in the code to be easy, thereby making our program to be dynamic. Let's look at this assignment. Explain the term variable. What keywords are used to declare a variable in JavaScript? The operator used to assign values to variable is, and then a variable whose content cannot change after assignment is called. Like, subscribe, and share this lesson for others to also benefit. This is how you can also support the channel. Put all your answers at the comment section and I shall verify the answers for you. This is the end of lesson 4. Now let's look at lesson 5.